African Bank's new chief executive, Basani Maluleke, has been quoted as saying, since coming out of curatorship, the bank has faced a funding challenge, that usually means a crisis, and needs to diversify its funding to be competitive. She is my guest today. Did you face a funding crisis, or was it just, in political speak, a challenge?
It definitely is just a challenge. So in reconstituting the bank post-curatorship, the funding structure that was put in place was pretty much rolled over from the previous bank. And as you can imagine, the funding rates on that funding are quite high because it is wholesale funding. So a lot of the work that we're doing at the moment is into ensuring that we get more retail funding. So you may have noticed that we have a lot of presence in the market around getting loans, around getting deposits into the bank. And we offer very attractive rates. In fact, I think we offer the most attractive rates in the market to get those deposits in. And we're doing it for two key reasons. One is absolutely around diversifying our funding. And I think the second one is to start getting people familiar with the idea of African Bank as being more than just a monoline product, but also as being a bank that offers many different products.
I don't mean to keep comparing you to one of your big rivals, and that is Capitec. But Capitec has always had this dual funding model where if it's needed funding, it could go to the markets, but primarily and increasingly so with its recent results, you see it getting greater levels of deposits coming in. As a bank, your chief goal has got to get people like myself and others to convert their banking relationship from their existing account and pay their salaries into your bank accounts so that you can use that money to lend on to others, considerably cheaper than by going to the bond market and saying to the bond market investors, please lend us some money so we can lend it on, which was the traditional way that African Bank did business.
Absolutely. And that's why we have developed what we think are very competitive products, deposit products and investment products. And we are advertising those quite widely to ensure that we start getting traction with people making deposits into the bank. And in addition to that, we're launching our transactional banking product later this year. As you know, the key around getting transactional banking products, as you mentioned, is to ensure that people start paying their salaries and you start getting a nice deposit base building.
And you get a stable client base as well, a more loyal client relationship going.
You're much better able to make your clients stickier if you're able to have a transactional banking account, and also you can start selling them other products that they need, because you can start understanding what their behavior is, and in that way start anticipating what they will need at different times and making it available to them.
So what is it that you're going to be offering? Because from the traditional African Bank mindset is of the place where you go to borrow money and where you go to repay your loan, this becomes a far more to and fro relationship in the traditional world of banking.
It definitely does. And we are so excited about it, right? So we're launching as a digital banking product, so you should be able to open your account on an app, upload all your various documentation from a FICA verification perspective and an anti-money laundering perspective, and have an account and be able to transact with it without having to walk into a branch. So that's kind of the dream.
And you talk about it being almost fee-free, which again for South Africans who have felt ripped off by their retail banks for a very long period of time, and you having come from a traditional banking environment, you'll be familiar with this, people have felt quite ripped off, so it becomes quite an attractive prospect. But nothing is for nothing. Nothing
is for nothing. So there will be transparency. So customers, I think the key is transparency. People must know what they're getting charged for and why, and it must be clear to us as the bank, because you'll recall earlier I spoke about humanity through banking. We must be clear that what we're charging you for, we're actually delivering value for. And I think at the moment there's a lot of charges that banks will, levy on their customers where value hasn't really been created. And that's what we're looking at, making sure that we do. So closer to the time of launching our transactional banking product to the market, we will then disclose what that pricing model will be. But it will absolutely be near free. And
near free, see, this whole thing makes me very uncomfortable. Near free, because things are either free or they're not free. Near free, there's no such thing. What is near free? Please clarify.
I suppose near free means that it will be a low-cost, competitive pricing model that we will employ.
And also, I suppose, incentives to, if you have a 10,000 Rand deposit kept with us, then your banking will be cheaper than somebody who deposits 10,000 Rand and diminishes it over a period of a month. If you keep a minimum balance, you get a better rate because you can use that 10,000 Rand to lend on, for example.
So I can't disclose exactly what all the bells and whistles are going to be, but there will be bells and whistles. And I think the key is to, one, as you've just kind of mentioned, right, you need to ensure that your customers feel incentivized to bank with you. I mean, the rewards model at the moment is a huge thing for all the banks, for all the insurers. Everybody loves the idea of rewards, and I think it is about making sure that you drive the behavior that you want by ensuring that customers feel rewarded either in terms of cash back or in terms of a more a cheaper banking model than they otherwise would have anywhere else.
Is this market big enough for another retail bank? We've seen the enormous growth over recent years of retail banking. We've seen the retail banks play in the micro-lending market for a bit and then cut back quite dramatically. Capitec owns that sector. You've been through a really difficult patch, and you're almost starting from scratch. Once again, as African Bank, the brand is there, the brand has resonance. Many of our customers won't be aware of the crisis of the corporate entity that caused the curatorship. Sure. But is there really space for another one?
Well, given that we have a few more coming, and not just us, and during the course of this year, never mind in the years ahead, I think the market is getting intensely competitive, right, and perhaps getting more saturated. But I think what we're all recognizing is that there is there's an absolute opportunity to disrupt how banking currently works, for all the reasons you mentioned earlier, right? I do think the pricing structures of banks are higher than what they should be. I do think that there's value that ordinary customers can be capturing. I think a different value proposition is required. When we think about what we're going to be offering on our transactional banking product, and what we're really proud of as well, is the opportunity to start creating shared banking. So if we look at the behavior of people at the moment, people have WhatsApp groups for everything, ranging from my gym buddies to people I listen to music with. And I think there's an opportunity to say, well, if you value whatever it is that you're doing with these people, is there an opportunity to start doing some banking with them? What would a shared banking model be? So there's a bit of a stock-file feel to it on the one hand, but I think also there's the opportunity when we talk to people who say, well, actually, I have my ski group, and we're planning our ski trip, and it would be great if we had an ability to save for it together and to be able to do other cool things that we can do as a team around our banking. And also, if you think about how, for many people, financial services is a bit of a black box, right? People aren't necessarily comfortable talking about money. People aren't necessarily comfortable asking about money, because too often there's jargon and people feel as if they're being made to look stupid. And I think the opportunity to kind of say to people, you can do this as a team, you can learn about this as a group, and kind of demystify this thing, and start using language that is more accessible, let's say, to ordinary people. I think that's where the niche really is for us.
Well, that is an interesting competitive space that we're moving into. I want to talk about that competitive space and how they position themselves within it. So a former colleague at FNB, Michael Jordan, and other ex-FNB colleagues look to start Bank Zero, and we've got Discovery Bank coming on stream, plus of course we've got the likes of Capitec getting increasingly aggressive in the market, and the mainstream banks having to defend their patch. It creates an interesting fight, particularly in the market that African Bank serves. If Postbank can be got to function more effectively, suddenly the world of banking in South Africa starts to look very different within the next 6 months. More on that in a moment.